In the interest of time, I'm going to launch into today's conversation as people continue to join us. Welcome to the East Bay Leadership Council's Capital Series, and thank you for joining us for what promises to be an informative conversation with Senator Jerry McNerney. I'm Mark Orcutt, President and CEO of the East Bay Leadership Council. We are a nonprofit organization on a mission to strengthen the economy and improve quality of life in Contra Costa and Alameda counties. For nearly 90 years, we've worked to build a policy environment where businesses can start, stay, grow, and residents thrive. Events like today remind us why we do this work. In many ways, we believe in the power of dialogue, collaboration, and informed civic engagement. You can see that in everything we do, but I believe the Capital Series brings those values to life by convening leaders who shape the decisions impacting our communities every day. Before we go any further, I'd like to offer a thank you to our series sponsors. Your support makes our work possible every day and also allows us to host events like this with intention and impact. Our series sponsors, our Capital Series sponsors include the Martinez Refining Company, IBEW Local 302, Western States Petroleum Association, the Contra Costa Community College District, Contra Costa Water District, Hospital Council of Northern and Central California, H-Cycle, and John Muir Health. Thank you to our Capital Series sponsors. I'd also like to take a moment to recognize EBLC's leading members. These are organizations that invest at a higher level to support our mission-driven work year-round. You see their logos on the screen, and I want to thank them for their continued partnership and support along our mission. Okay, I also want to make sure you have Threads of Hope on your calendar for December 4th. That's where we gather to celebrate volunteerism and philanthropy that powers so many of the local nonprofit organizations in the region. It's an inspiring night, co-presented alongside Diablo Magazine and our title sponsor, Kaiser Permanente. As a reminder, all ticket proceeds are donated back to the nonprofit organizations honored at the event. I hope you join us December 4th at the Lesher Center in Walnut Creek. Okay, now, before I introduce the Senator, one more thing. If you have joined one of our Capital Series events this year, then you know we like to play a little game of bingo. You can scan the QR code on the screen to generate your bingo card. It's filled with themes and phrases you might hear during today's conversation. If you get a bingo, take a screenshot or just tell me and email it to our team. You'll be entered into a raffle for comp tickets to an upcoming EBLC event. Also, make sure you stay locked in to the conversation this afternoon. Okay, we'll keep the bingo QR code up if you need it, but it is now my pleasure to introduce our featured speaker this morning. Senator Jerry McNerney was elected in 2024 to represent California's 5th Senate District, which includes portions of the Tri-Valley and San Joaquin County. He brings to the Senate 16 years of service in the U.S. Congress, where he championed innovation, veterans issues, and clean energy. A mathematician and engineer by training, he helped develop cutting-edge wind technologies before entering public service. In Senate, he now chairs the Revenue and Taxation Committee, serves on key committees focused on energy, the environment, and veterans affairs, continuing in so many ways his work to strengthen California's economy and advance sustainable growth. So I could have made that intro much longer, but I just want to defer some time to you, Senator. Please join me in welcoming Senator Jerry McNerney. Senator, the floor is yours for kind of any opening remarks before we jump into Q&A.
Well, hello, Mark, and thanks for inviting me today. It'd be great to see this in person, but that wasn't able to happen. Anyway, I just want to sort of give a little background of why I ran for office in the first place. As you mentioned, I was developing a renewable energy technology for about 20 years. You see those in the wind turbines and the power electronics that drives those in Altamont Pass and Solano County, Palm Springs, other places around the country and the world. But in 2004, my son had joined the service after 9/11 and gave me a call. I think it was February of 2004, said, "Dad, I just got my absentee ballot in the mail and no one's running against the incumbent in Congress. People need to have a choice, Dad." And I just want to say, I'm serving our country, Dad, and what are you doing with yourself? I mean, I think I want you to run for Congress, give people a choice. And of course, with that sort of urging, it's basically impossible to say no, although I did it first. But eventually I thought, well, okay, this is something that I need to do. And of course, I ran in 2004. We lost in the general election after a very tight primary. And then I went on to 2006 with more experience in politics and won that election. And I really focused on a couple of things. I focused on energy policy. I spent my career developing energy technology. I'm very excited about it. But other things, the environment, of course, healthcare, a big issue, no matter who you are in Congress or what you are focused on. Healthcare is going to be something that's very important. And we had a lot of very important things happen during those 16 years. The financial crisis of 2009, 2010, that was a huge challenge. We also had the war in Iraq, which we had to taper down, a big part of my efforts there in Congress. And then moving on to developing technology policy. I was asked to be a co-chair of the Congressional AI Caucus, which back in 2016, 17, nobody knew too much about it. It wasn't a very big deal. But I can tell you there were a lot of staffers and a lot of members of Congress that were interested. And the purpose of that caucus was to inform people about this emerging technology. And that means having experts from around the country and around the world really come, to talk about that to people and give them more information, more different points of view, what the threats are, what the opportunities are, who's going to be affected by it, and so on. And so that was a very big deal. And then shortly after I left, the OpenAI came out with their chat bots, and that sort of woke everybody up about how important this technology was, and it's growing then. And that's one of the issues that really drives me in the state Senate now. So that's a little bit of background. Of course, my district has a lot of the Delta in it, so water policy is very, very important. And veterans issues have been extremely important to me. As I mentioned, my son was in the service. He's now a veteran. And I was instrumental in bringing that Veterans Hospital out there on I-5 near French Camp, just south of Stockton. So my son told me when I left Congress that what I did for the veterans would be the things that I would be most proud of, and he was absolutely right. But there's a lot of other issues that I was championing on, like getting the AI Government Act enacted, which creates a Center of Excellence in artificial intelligence for the federal government to draw upon. So the different agencies can draw upon that expertise, which lies in the General Services Administration. And from there, after 16 years, it was time for me to leave Congress. I'd been there enough, and it's really very, very hard to get things done there. I felt like I wasn't being very productive. Spent a year and a half in a law firm, and again tried to create an AI trade association, which is still gaining traction, to make sure that AI is safe and beneficial in the future. And so I was recruited to run for the state Senate back in early 2024. Actually, I was very late in 2023, I think in December. And so I made that effort, and now I'm serving both the Tri-Valley of Alameda County anyway, and also all of San Joaquin County. So it's a pretty big district. It's got about 1 million people, a lot of very varied interests and varied political climates between the Tri-Valley on one hand and the Central Valley on the other hand. Very different political environments. But people want the same things, right? They want to have good jobs. They want to be able to afford to send their kids to school. They don't want to be sitting on the highway 4 or 5 hours a day. So, and they want clean air, good water, affordable houses, and so on. So those are things that I think everybody can agree upon.
I think you're right on. Would you like me to jump into some questions? I certainly have some follow-ups for you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Well, I just wanted to say Thank you for sharing your story, the kind of why you're running story. And I think if I don't know if you'd ever be willing to call up my parents and let them know, like, hey, you should listen to your kids. That's the listen to your kids is a good hallmark lesson that it sounds like you've lived out your life according to there. But I wanted to ask you, after 16 years in Congress, you're the new guy in the state Senate in so many
Yeah,
ways.
yeah.
What's that experience been like? Anything surprise you about that transition to the state legislature?
Oh, yes. It's vastly different than Washington. And they say when you go through life, you got a series of beginnings and endings, and there's a point when you're a senior person, and then there's a point when you're a more junior person, and that sort of continues throughout your life. And moving from a fairly senior position, leadership position in Washington, but to a freshman in the state house was a big transition. But I can tell you what, in Washington, it's really hard to get things done, and you're working with the committee. The committee that you're on has jurisdiction over certain issues. You can't really get much done outside of those issues that your committee has jurisdiction on. The speaker, you have to answer to the speaker for basically whatever you do. The committee does a lot of the work, and you get a lot of the credit. But in Sacramento, really, it's up to you. You decide which issues you want to work on. You get a committee assignment or a couple of committee assignments, but they don't really determine exactly what you have to work on. You can propose legislation on anything you want, and it's up to you to make sure that those legislation that you sponsor, that you push forward, gets traction. You have to argue with the opposition. You have to cajole people in your own party and friends to vote for you. And there's some tough issues that people don't want to vote on for one reason or another. So it's much more engaged. You're much more engaged in the actual legislative process in Sacramento than I ever was in Washington. And I can tell you, I got um, more bills passed into law this last 1 year than I did in 16 years in Washington. Although in Washington, basically what you end up doing is finding a big bill that your committee is pushing forward, and then finding a place in that big bill for what you want. So you get a little bit of work done by inserting your ideas into big bills. You certainly don't get credit for that, though. But it's much more rewarding in Sacramento. I feel like I'm really uh, being productive. I get to listen to constituents' specific issues that they care about, and feel like I'm making a difference in their lives in a more direct way than I ever did in Washington.
Do you think you'll be stepping in kind of as you have more agency over the issues you can work on, stepping into some new policy spaces for you in the state legislature? Is there anything that you see on your horizon that might be a new adventure for someone who is certainly, I think, not afraid of complex topics?
Well, I can tell you
Thinking
what, I had no experience, legislative experience in the tax issues. And
Mhm.
now I'm a chair of the Revenue and Tax Committee in the Senate, in the state Senate. And, it's a fascinating field. I'm really enjoying getting my hands into it. That's something I'd really like to do is level out the volatility of the California tax revenue stream. I mean, you see, a few years ago, we had what a $90 billion surplus, and now we're seeing 50, $60 billion deficits because of the change of revenue stream. And so trying to trying to even that out would be a big achievement. And I'm working on that. I got a great staff. I can tell you, I have a great staff in Sacramento. I did in Washington, but it's just more engaged now. I'm just feeling a lot more rewarded. But and also another thing I'd like to do a little on the sly side, honestly, is figure out how to send a little bit less money to Washington and keep the revenues we have here in California to build up our state capabilities. So those are a couple of my long-term goals here, and I'm just engaged with that. I think it's very exciting. Another area, of course, is artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
Uh, the states are really the laboratory for legal, for law in this country. If a state can produce a law and have it affect and show that that effect is beneficial, then other states are likely to copy that, and the whole the national legislature is also going to be looking at what we do. So, and besides that, California naturally leads the country in legislation and ideas, whether it's the environment, whether it's technology, whether it's healthcare. And this puts us in a position where we can really find out what's going to work to make things better, to make artificial intelligence safe and beneficial for our people, to make sure that healthcare, we provide healthcare for everyone. So these are big challenges. We're looking at those and we're attacking those full frontal. And hopefully we'll make progress, and the rest of the country will look at what we've accomplished and say, those are good ideas. We want to do the same thing.
Well, I'm certainly interested in a number of those issue areas you brought up. I think I might circle back a little bit to this idea of kind of what your thoughts are related to the tax system. It's a tricky balance when you're trying to both balance a competitive business environment with delivering those critical services and figuring out how we smooth out that famous volatility of the California state budget. So I don't know if you have anything else you kind of wanted to share and kind of how you approach that balance as a policymaker in the state.
Well, I don't want to say too much about the specifics right now because
Yeah.
we're working on the details, but
Okay.
I can tell you what, that's a real difficult challenge. You got to get that needle, you got to thread that needle very carefully because you want to make sure that businesses aren't hurt by higher taxes. If you raise taxes, basically businesses are going to say, well, why should we do business in California? We're going to go somewhere else. So you want to make sure that businesses are comfortable with the revenue stream that we require from them, but also you want to have revenue so we can provide the services that are needed. We want good roads, a good infrastructure. We want to make sure that we have electricity that's affordable, which now is a huge, big challenge, and those things that make the infrastructure that makes a business that makes it good for businesses to operate in your state. So there's a huge challenge there, and I'm looking at that. My team is looking at that with gusto. We know to figure this out, how to encourage businesses here, and yet to have the revenue we need to have the state infrastructure ready to support those businesses.
Yep. Well, we've been really involved. It might be something, while it's happening outside of your district, we've worked really closely with your colleague, Senator Grayson, on the Green Empowerment Zone and the work that's there, really focused on how we can grow clean energy manufacturing in a specific geographic area, right? So hopefully there'll be some strong lessons learned there that we can scale out, and would love your continued leadership to help us make that zone as successful as possible. So we got a question that I think is a good opener. You had talked about the diversity and range that your district provides between the Tri-Valley and Central Valley regions. We got a question from one of our close partners, Innovation Tri-Valley, and Katie Marcel in the chat, was hoping for your perspective on where our challenges and opportunities align between those two regions. Maybe there's ways that they differ. Anything from your vantage point that you see as promising opportunities for collaboration between both the Tri-Valley and the Central Valley. To really kind of reflections on those two regions, opportunities for collaborations, shared challenges, and maybe some ways that they differ. So reflections on your district.
Okay, well, certainly that's a great question.
Yeah.
I think one of the areas that is really enticing collaboration is transportation. If you live in the Tri-Valley, you see how bad Interstate 580, which is really the main corridor between the East Bay and most of the Bay Area, in fact, to the Central Valley and points east. That is a huge set of congestion. I mean, I have to get stuck in that thing frequently, and I'm as motivated as the next person. But we have folks in the valley that have to get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, drive 2 hours or more one way, work 8 hours, work harder, maybe 12 hours, and then drive home. They don't get to see their kids. They don't get to see daylight, outside of their offices. So I'm working on that. And there is really good collaboration between the Central Valley and the Tri-Valley. For example, Valley Link, which will provide seamless transportation between the Valley and the BART station in the Pleasant to Dublin area. I think that's a really important challenge, and we want to continue to provide funding and the planning and infrastructure development needed for that. Again, the state is a little bit reluctant to give us money to do that, and we're gonna have to fight for it.
What's your outlook on the progress there? Sorry to interrupt there, but kind of the wanting to follow that thread on Valley Link. What role do you see for the state? Like, what's your outlook on progress for Valley Link?
Well, we have been able to make some progress. We've been able to continue funding for the planning and engineering of that project. I met. In fact, I'm going to go this afternoon out to the Rail Commission in San Joaquin County and talk more about that. And so that is moving along. We also want to make sure that the ACE train, which connects the Central Valley to Silicon Valley, it goes through Pleasanton, Livermore, Pleasanton, and then heads sharply south to San Jose, and it misses the BART station, and that's why we had the need for Valley Link. So connecting those things, making sure that all of those forms of public transportation are safe, reliable, convenient, affordable. That's our challenge, and it's a big one. But I think if we can pull off that Valley Link project, we're going to be able to get more people to take that public transportation than get stuck in traffic. I mean, there's times when you get stuck in traffic and it's just hours. You're sitting there for hours. I think there was a time this summer a truck went over and started fire, and the backup was something I've never seen before. It went in for miles and miles and miles, and people are just stuck there. So those are the kind of things that we need to really work on between the two. Now, one of the points of difference is the water issues. San Joaquin County is really the center of California Delta, of the San Joaquin Delta. That's really the biggest freshwater source in California. And there's a lot of pressure to put in tunnels or to put in some sort of peripheral canal that will bypass the Delta and provide reliable water to different parts of the state, including the Tri-Valley, including parts of the Bay Area. And so trying to find a solution that makes sense to everybody here. I don't think putting tunnels in is going to be the answer, because that's a massively expensive project. If that happens, water districts that invest in that are going to be paying enormous bills for 20 years. And this project is going to take at least 10 years if they move forward with it. So I think there's other alternatives. We can strengthen the levees. We can look at other groundwater storage. There's enough groundwater storage potential in San Joaquin County to provide a lot of water. And then a little bit of desal, more efficient water use in agriculture and urban environments. So there's a lot we can do that will prevent us, in my opinion, from having to put tunnels in. So that's an area that I go to one side of the district and people are saying one thing, and I go to the other side, people are saying another thing, and I'm saying, well, how do I get these two different parts of the district to cooperate on this one? So that's
understanding what's at stake kind of broadly, right? We're talking about, a statewide challenge and then real local impacts on Delta communities. Finding that balance, I think you'll be a critical voice in those conversations. But how do you? So we were supporters. Tell us a little bit about, I don't know, you don't have to get into the absolute specifics of the bill, but we were proud to support SB 31, a bill you carried this year that was signed into law by the governor, which aims to expand the use of recycled water. What kind of impacts could it have across the state? Any reflections on recycled water as a piece of that puzzle to creating affordable, reliable, and safe water for our communities and industry?
Well, I think that question sort of answers itself. Really, the more recycled water we use, the better off we're going to be. And so recycling can be expensive, but if you recycle to what they call tertiary level, it can be used, but it's not really potable. So you can use it for agriculture. You can use it for watering ornamental plants. You can use it in golf courses. You can use it a lot of different ways. And so but there's some restrictions on how you can use recycled water, how well you can use it, how you can use it in different ways. So what this bill does is basically opens up some of those things that are safe to use recycled water. And it has a big impact because it means that we have to use less pure, drinkable water. And I think that's going to make a big impact over time, require us to ship less water from the Delta and use less water from the other water sources that the state has, like the Owens Valley and the Colorado River. So it's going to be a big benefit. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from that, when people are saying, yeah, it's about time we do things like this to get more use of recycled water so we don't have to use fresh water, which is expensive and it's precious.
And I want to make sure that, our community, your district and the East Bay at large are leaders in this. I want to make sure that we're at the center of this innovation,
Yeah.
rather than potentially some other parts of it. I mean, I want everyone. I think there's a broader good in recycled water, but I think there's a real opportunity for us to be at the forefront here. And it's something we've had a lot of conversations about through our
Oh, yeah.
Water, Energy, and Environment Task Force. Um, let's see. Do
Well,
you
let me just jump in here and
keep
say,
going?
one of the things we can do is educate people more about that issue. Water is so precious in California. How do we get people to understand how precious it is, and without raising prices? So that if you look at other countries like Australia, they're very, very good about water usage, and they're very efficient. Israel, very good about the way they use water. They get less water they do, and yet they're able to export it to some of their neighbors. So we got a lot to learn, and we got a lot to educate, and hopefully we can advance those issues in the next few years.
If you were gonna look into your crystal ball today, do you think these Delta tunnels or some major water project from the Delta to Southern California gets done?
Well, the governor and I have a little disagreement about that, Mark.
Yeah.
And
I
we
recognize what maybe you think, but I was kind of like, hey, like how likely that is this? Is this something that, as it rises in concern, is it more of a just kind of if you were a betting man, where do you think we would be looking? How much of a threat is this on our Delta communities?
it's a big threat, and it's not something that's going to go away. I mean, I sort of won the fight this year,
Hmm.
but I know the governor's determined, and he's got a lot of resources. The Los Angeles Department of Water is going to be a big ally to the governor. That's a lot of votes in the state house.
Yeah.
But what my challenge is to, hey, let's put together a plan that makes sense, that we can sell to Southern California and say, here, if we follow this plan, you're going to be assured of fresh water, the fresh water that you need, and you're not going to have to pay these massive bills, and it's not going to be so disruptive to my community. So I think the challenge is really in my court right now to cajole the interested parties to work together to find a plan that makes sense and that people can get behind throughout the state.
Okay. Well, thank you, Senator. Thank you on that path of um, coordination and collaboration on complex issues. No doubt, water is one of the top among them. I've got the book Cadillac Desert sitting on my book up here somewhere. The history of water and politics in
Nice.
California, inextricably linked. Okay, I'm going to try to kind of keep us moving. We touched on transportation and water. I'm going to try to bounce around a few other issues here. You've often been described, or when you were in Congress, as Congress's science guy, the mathematics PhD who brought engineering mindset to policy making. How does that training, that background, shape your work today? Do you think that translates well to complex scientific ideas, effective legislation? How has the science guy impacted your ability to lead as a policymaker?
Well, I have to be honest, Mark, in Washington, your background basically was completely insignificant, almost completely insignificant. You're judged on how many years you've been on this committee or how many years you've been on that committee. In Sacramento, it's a little different. I mean, people are looking to me for specific ideas on artificial intelligence, which, yeah, and they're looking for science policy. How do we decide on what's worthwhile and what isn't worthwhile to spend precious dollars on? So, yeah, I feel very much more empowered as a scientist in Sacramento than I ever did in Washington.
Yeah. So you've been quoted saying that many policymakers misunderstand artificial intelligence as we
Mhm.
think about technology. Um, how do you think we prepare for those workforce impacts while encouraging innovation? What is your grand scheme on AI and its societal impacts and how we can support our communities through
Well,
this
that's a little
innovative
question.
moment? Yeah.
Small question.
With the balance
Um,
of our time, just in a minute or two, Senator. Yeah.
no, really, artificial intelligence is clearly impacting our society, and there's a lot of things that we need to be aware of. I don't know. I would say that my colleagues misunderstand it, but I think there's a broad sense that we don't understand it, and I think that even goes for the experts. AI is incredibly complicated. My focus is let's make sure that AI is safe and beneficial to society. that's a challenge right there. And so there's various ways to do that. You could pass laws and create regulations, but I have some doubts about that because as you put regulations in, you're going to be 2 years, 3 years behind or more behind the technology. Technology is going to be able to leap over your regulations. So I've been focused on creating standards for artificial intelligence. How do you create standards? Like if you look at the standards for the electricity industry, you buy an electric product, you can plug it in, and you expect to get shocked by it, or you buy a mechanical product or a car, you expect it to work without losing control of the steering. These are standards that protect consumers. Now, I think we can do that with artificial intelligence. One of the big issues is data. I mean, how do you characterize data so that when you train a model, you know kind of where it's coming from, you know what to expect, what are its biases, what are its risks? Data is one area, but watermarking, can we create standards so that when you use AI, that it's clear that you've used AI to create some sort of a writing project or some sort of a art project or things like that. And another thing is to ask for humans to be in the loop so that when decisions are made with AI, that they're not running open loop. In other words, that they're not going to make decisions that might be what they call hallucinations now. So those are some of the big challenges. There's also AI is very prominent in agriculture, very prominent in healthcare now. And one of my concerns really is displacement. So is AI going to be displacing large sections of the workforce? And I'd like to work really hard with stakeholders to see that that doesn't happen. Because if people start getting laid off, then there's going to be unrest. There's going to be political upheavals. And I kind of like American society. I don't want it to be go through those kind of changes. And so those are big challenges. And again, I've got a terrific staff. There's a lot of input that I get from stakeholders, and we're looking at inputs. We're balancing factors and trying to make the best policies and filter out the best policy ideas we can find to make sure that we do provide safe and beneficial use of this incredible technology. I mean, it's really transformative. And another aspect of AI is energy. I mean, how much energy is this stuff going to require? Is it going to set us back on climate change because we have to generate so much energy? Is it going to cause electricity bills to go up or go down? Is it going to create a need for more infrastructure for transmission lines and distribution lines? And so these are all huge challenges, and I think the great thing is that we're in a position to do something about it. One of the things that's so disturbing about Washington is that they were proposing that that Washington preempt all state law throughout all of our 50 states, so we wouldn't be able to regulate or do anything to help contain AI or to help put guardrails around AI. And I mean, that might be okay if Washington was doing something, but it's not. Washington has not been able to get anything done on artificial intelligence, of course, except the AI in Government Act, which I passed back in 2022. So this is a huge challenge, and I don't want to see the federal government preempting state law. I think that would be not only a dereliction of their duty to do anything about AI, but it would be almost criminal in terms of the kind of harm that AI might cause without any sort of regulation.
Well, yeah, thank you for sharing. Safe and beneficial is now burned into my
Yes.
lexicon on this. So
Good.
thank you for that. You've certainly been a strong voice for innovation. Do you see opportunities? And you mentioned your AI and Government Act. What opportunities do you see potentially for using AI data tools inside public agencies to improve outcomes for residents? So more on kind of the application side, understanding that safe and beneficial needs to be our guardrails. What do you see as opportunities within government to maybe embrace some of these technologies?
I think it's a tremendous opportunity. For example, if you want to get something done on your Social Security benefits, you've got this huge agency, and it's you get stuck on call after call after call to try and get through to somebody. Same thing if you are a veteran and wanting to work for the Veterans Administration. I mean, the Veterans Administration, my gosh, that is the second biggest agency in the federal government after the Department of Defense. and trying to get things done in that agency are just very, very hard. Takes years and years. It took me 16 years to get that VA hospital built out there in French Camp. So these agencies, if you can use AI to sort of streamline support for constituents, for support for people that need those kinds of helps, you'll make a big difference in people's lives. And again, that goes back to the AI in Government Act. Now that the GSA has this expertise, they can advise the different agencies, the Department of Defense, the Veterans Administration, the Internal Revenue Service, all these agencies could use that kind of help. And with the right kind of support, they can make life a lot easier. And I think that's a big opportunity for AI.
Thanks, Senator. So I don't think you'll be surprised that I pivot to a couple questions talking about the federal government, since I've got you, a 16-year former congressman. So government shutdown now extending into 4 weeks. What's your perspective on how this kind of prolonged shutdown affects the country, not just economically, but in terms of critical health programs, functioning of our institutions? I'm kind of opening up the floor as broadly as you would like to discuss kind of these impacts of a government shutdown, any insights you'd have from having governed in Congress through previous shutdowns as well. Any thoughts there, Senator?
Well, government shutdowns are a big risk, in my opinion. The federal government works by leveraging a lot of different organizations, whether it's creating payroll or creating services for this, for the Department of Defense or for any of the agencies. And once you start eliminating those services, they may not be there when you want them back. And so right now we're depending on things like air traffic controllers. And by gosh, I'm going to be flying down to LA Wednesday, so I sure hope that system is still working. But honestly, this creates significant risk for long-term well-functioning of our federal government. And to build back those capabilities is not it's not a done deal. I mean, these things take time. Things like the environmental defense agency, that agency is almost completely destroyed, decimated now. And so getting the EPA staffed up again, who's going to want to work there if they have every 4 years or every 8 years a risk of being thrown out on the street? So and the National Science Foundation, I mean, these are organizations that provide real services to our country and to our citizens. And to see these agencies time after time be chopped off at the knees and then be expected to regrow, I don't know. I'm not very happy about what I'm seeing. And specific services, healthcare services, but that's the challenge that this whole shutdown is about.
I mean, what do you think breaks the stalemate?
Well, I think when people start seeing that their healthcare costs go up, when the food that they buy, American food or foreign imported food, is not safe, when they see that these federal services aren't what they've depended on, and they didn't even realize, they take these things for granted, and all of a sudden they don't have them, they're going to start demanding the change. And what really drove the Democrats, and this is the U.S. Senate Democrats, was that they could see that their constituents are going to be cut off healthcare services, health insurance, and so they want the best for their constituents. Everybody does. Everybody, politician wants their constituents to have the best that they can from the federal government. So when they see these services being chopped off with H.R. 1, the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, they say, well, what leverage do we have? And if the federal government is using its resources to fund things that are of questionable benefit or even harmful benefit, and instead of the essential services they depend on, the politicians are going to react, and the people that elect them are also going to demand something be done. So I see that coming up. People are going to start seeing their health insurances. Right now, this is the enrollment period. So people are going to say, wow, my health insurance costs are going to double. I mean, what's that all about? So I think we're going to be hearing more shortly in the next, and I'd say in the next 2 weeks, we'll see significant pressure ramping up on folks in Washington to get this thing settled.
I mean, it certainly begs the question of what it tells us about our federal government. Something as basic as food assistance becomes
Yeah.
uncertain for millions of
Yeah.
families. That's certainly the question that I'm asking myself. You brought up HR1 there briefly. Certainly set to increase the number of uninsured Californians. Do you see a role for the California legislature in safeguarding that access to care, particularly for a region like the East Bay that has one of the fastest growing senior populations in California? So, like, is there anything that you're thinking about working on there? Is this something that we're going to have to really support your colleagues at the state, or is this something we need to fight for at the federal level?
Well, I don't have a whole lot of jurisdiction in federal issues at this point, but California in the state Senate and in the state Assembly, we're determined to make sure that we provide the basic benefits, healthcare benefits to Californians, and that means we need resources to do that. We need the money to do that. So that's why I'm kind of focused, as I mentioned early on, that I wanted to see us send less money to the federal government and keep more of that money here in California, so that we can provide our citizens with the basic fundamental services that people need in the state. So that's really my motive for that. And I can tell you, we're determined to make sure that we provide basic healthcare benefits to Californians. Medicaid, Medi-Cal was expanded a couple of years ago before I got to the state Senate, and a lot of people signed up for it. And that's good because we want to make sure that people have access to healthcare, but it's expensive. And that's why we had such a big budget issue this last year, is that the Medi-Cal costs were ballooning. And so it's our responsibility, I think, and most of my colleagues agree, that we have to find a way to provide that basic service to our state. And so that's our challenge. And again, that's why I look forward to balancing, to taking the volatility out of our state budget, and to keep as much money here in California as we can for that, so that we have the resources to provide those services.
Yeah, I got a question that's come in here from a former chair of the organization who cares a lot about transportation.
Mm.
That's really also speaking to this idea of stable sources of future funding. So I'm kind of asked that question here. So combining new taxes and traffic, what do you see as the next steps for transitioning potentially from a gas tax to a more stable potential source of revenue for transportation?
Well, I haven't really tackled that one yet,
Okay.
Mark, but you're right, that's out there. It's not something we can ignore for very long. People are using more electric vehicles, and alternative forms of transportation. So the Highway Trust Fund is not what it used to be for the state of California. That may be a federal term that I just threw in there. I'm sorry about that. But we need to have the revenue to make sure our roads and highways are safe, that they don't cause more problems. When you're driving a car, you don't want your axle to be thrown out, or
Yeah.
flat tires. You want maintenance on your car to be minimized. But we also want to make sure that we have the electrical charging infrastructure, so that when people feel confident when they buy an EV, electric vehicle, that they will be able to charge it when they run low, and that charging can be expedited, so that it won't take an hour and a half to charge. It'll take 10 minutes maybe. So those are big challenges, and finding the revenue to do that, aside from the gas tax, is something that we're going to have to challenge during my term. No question about it.
Well, speaking of fuel taxes and costs, we'll kind of start to transition into the energy space. There's lots of different topics we could take here. We do
Mhm.
have one question about the legislature took a step to get oil production permits going again in Kern
Mhm.
County, but the California refining infrastructure capacity still increasingly perilous with two announced California closures. Any thoughts on meeting California's very strong oil and gas demand, current demand, going forward, and what we can do to make sure that it is both affordable and reliable energy remains available to Californians?
Another great question
Okay.
that I was engaged with this last year. What we want to do in California is basically reduce our carbon emissions, at the same time, not increasing the price that we pay to do that. And we don't want customers to be saying, well, I can buy gas a lot cheaper in Texas, or I can get my electricity a lot cheaper in Texas. Let's move over there. We don't want that, and we don't want people to say, well, geez, my gas prices are too high. I want to throw these politicians out and then elect somebody else that's going to lower them. So these are challenges. We again, as the demand for for gasoline diminishes, which it is because more people are using electric vehicles now and other forms of transportation. The refineries are going to say, well, we don't need to refine gas here in California anymore, so we're going to move out. And besides, they tell us, refineries I met with, they tell us, well, you don't really want us here anymore, so we're going to move. And so that's a challenge. We want to make sure that there's gas refining done here in California. Also, the Kern County issue. There's been some restrictions on pumping in Kern County for good reasons. But what we see is that if we don't use gas pumped in Kern County, which is done well, they know how to do it. There's always going to be some accidents and spillage, but they do a pretty good job in Kern County. If we don't get it from Kern County, we're going to get it from Venezuela, for example, or India or Ecuador, and they don't have the same environmental quality rules we do. So there's going to be more damage to the Earth's environment if we buy gasoline, oil, crude oil from other countries, and then either refine it there, again, less control over how the refining is done, or refine it here where we have pretty good control. So we want to keep as much production and refining here in California as possible. But the challenge is that we have a blend of California gas requirements called CARBOB, California Bob, which is very clean burning. And that's been very important in terms of reducing air pollution in the state of California. If you remember, even 20 years ago, air pollution in the valley was pretty bad, really, very bad. In Los Angeles, and these things have cleared up considerably. So this regional California blend has been very important in terms of air quality. Now, the problem is that a lot of that gasoline that's been refined comes from other countries like India. So we have no control over the price or the quantity. We're going to see a lot of high spikes. So what I wanted to do was when we see a shortage of the California KBOB, when we see a shortage of that we can temporarily reduce that standard and allow imports of regional blends like from Nevada, Arizona, Oregon, from our neighboring states for temporarily to make sure that we don't see these big spikes in gasoline prices. So I think that's one way to do it. We're also encouraging pumping of oil in Kern County. So these things will add up to lower gas prices in California in a way that's consistent with reduction of gas usage to eliminate the greenhouse gas emissions that come from our state.
Lot consequences of all policy decisions, right? And it's this complicated web that we weave in trying to serve our communities as best we can in the moment. We are strong advocates of an all of the above energy future at the East Bay Leadership Council. I wanted to pivot here slightly to both Livermore and Alameda made strong bids for a Pacific fusion project offering land, incentives, CEQA flexibility, yet it went to Albuquerque. So as a senator, former clean energy engineer, any lessons that you took from that outcome? Any policy levers you think need strengthening? Or did we kind of make our best play and we'll land the next one? What's kind of your reflections on fusion's future in our region and anything specific to that experience with Pacific Fusion?
Well, I want to make a really big plug for fusion in California. We have Livermore Labs has the only place in the entire world that's actually achieved ignition of fusion, which is a huge scientific breakthrough. Nowhere else in the world has even come close to that. So not only that, we have tremendous engineering and science in the state of California at Stanford, at Berkeley, at University of California, San Diego. I mean, and there's tremendous intellectual resources for this science, for this policy of fusion energy development here in California. So when Pacific Fusion decided to go to Albuquerque, yeah, they've got good people there too. I mean, they've got Sandia Labs and they've got Los Alamos Labs, but
Yeah.
they don't have the kind of intellectual resource we have in California. So I think that was a mistake on their part. But what really enticed them was incredible tax benefits that New Mexico was able to offer them that California is not really willing to do. I mean, we want to give them incentives, and we'll give them some tax incentives, but we're not going to give away $1 billion for a company to establish itself here in California. It's up to them to decide if they want to work in the best place in the world to develop this technology, or if they want to go off somewhere else. So that's the challenge. And fusion energy, my gosh, that is really going to transform. It's going to be transformative, like artificial intelligence, except in fat wire and not the skinny wire that we associate with electronics and artificial intelligence. So I'm really bullish about what's going to happen in fusion energy, and then it's going to happen right here in California, in the West Coast. Seattle, another place that has a lot of real potential. We're working together with Seattle to form a West Coast consortium on fusion, because this is it's going to be bigger than the oil industry is today. I mean, it's going to create a lot of parts, a lot of labor is going to be required. The supply chain is going to be incredible. It's going to, if we can win this thing and make it happen in the United States and California, we're going to be exporting a heck of a lot of industry and talent.
Energy abundance is a good place to be for an economy. You can draw a pretty straight line to having, affordable and abundant energy and a strong economy. So we stand ready to back you up in whatever you need in those efforts. Let's see. Recognize I only have a couple minutes here. I'm trying to be choosy. I guess I'll zoom out a little bit. Do you see, you have varying committee seats right now that kind of span from taxation and veteran affairs to others. Do you see opportunities for these issues kind of aligning for you? Is there some like big cross-sectional potential proposal where we're serving seniors, lifting up the workforce, developing AI jobs? Is there something I could see a potential vision there with your different committee assignments? Just curious if you've put any thought to kind of how those different issues might intersect for you in your time in the
Well, that's certainly a good question, and yes, absolutely. There's going to be an opportunity for with energy to provide energy for artificial intelligence. There's going to be jobs created, and there's going to be an opportunity to make sure that our water policies align with that, because you're going to need water for these data centers. You're going to need water for agriculture, which is a big part of my my Senate district. So there's a real opportunity for cross chatter and collaboration between the different parts of my Senate.
Well, they let you do whatever you want now. That's what I'm hearing in the legislature. So I'm going to call you with all kind of crazy ideas, since it doesn't matter what committee you're in. Well, I'm grateful for that. I guess I'm going to keep kind of move quickly here. We often talk about housing as an economic issue, moral imperative, environmental imperative around housing. How do you see housing affordability supply issue playing out in your district?
Well, there's certainly a lot of homeless anywhere in the state. You go the Central Valley, Stockton area, a lot of homeless people. Even in the Tri Valley, I see homeless here in Pleasanton and Livermore. So we need to keep the coals in the fire on this one. But we see a lot of housing developments going around. We just need to make sure that our cities are complying with the requirements that have been given to them, and give them the resources and the tools to do that. And that means permitting. It'd be great to have a one-stop shop for permitting if you're going to build houses, basically for any economic activity, so that people have some idea, some predictability about when they come up with an investment idea. What's it going to look like if we make that investment? Is someone going to pull the rug out from under us, or are they going to be there behind us when we need them? So those are some of the things we're going to be able to do. For example, I had a bill to rationalize the ADU housing, because there's a lot of disparity in the ADU laws around. There's one law, but it's interpreted like every county has its own interpretation. So we want a statewide consistent interpretation of ADU requirements, so that people can again know what they're up against when they want to build an ADU housing, whether it's a junior ADU, which is basically connected to your existing structure, or a new ADU, which is a separate structure. So these are some of the things that I think we can make progress on. And I can tell you what, with the rate houses are being built in our district, in Tracy and Mountain House and River Islands, and again here in Dublin and Livermore and Pleasant, we're seeing a lot of new houses go up. And the population in California is stabilized. We're growing, but not fast like we used to be.
You have to be one of the fastest. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but your district has to be one of the fastest growing in the state.
It is.
Yeah.
But I mean, my point is that we're building houses, and we're going to see the housing shortage, taper off, and there's going to be sufficient supply housing, I'd say, in the next 5 years.
We need more Senate District 5. Oh, I like that crystal ball. Thank you for the bold prediction there. All right, this will be a little bit of a downer, but I'm hoping the answer is uplifting. I don't know if that makes any sense, but we've seen growing assaults that we've talked about today on democratic institutions, social services, our immigrant neighbors. You have one of the most diverse districts, I think 35% Latino in your district. Are you hopeful? What gives you hope about American democracy and institutions today when you see these threats on these institutions and our neighbors?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get too political here, Mark, but I will if you force me to. I think there's certainly what appears to be a threat, and I believe it is a threat to democracy by the kind of actions that the administration is taking. I don't need to enumerate those, but when I see the enthusiasm for Prop 50 so that people get more of a true representation in Washington, and that we have a real chance to fight back some of the abuses that are happening, and the enthusiasm for people that are starting to get involved in this, it really brings good heart to me. And I think we're going to have to bear down, but I think if we do, California again is going to be in a position to lead the nation, and we can come out of this stronger. We can come out of this with a better democracy that's more responsive, with a less massive disparity of wealth between the few super wealthy and the massive people that are struggling paycheck to paycheck. I think we can come out of this a stronger, healthier democracy if we put our shoulders behind this and make sure we don't lose faith.
Thank you for your optimism, Senator. All right, so this is a question we're pretty known for here at the East Bay Leadership Council. So it'll be one of our last ones. If you could wave a magic wand, change one policy in the state of California, you've got the powers of the magic wand. What would it be?
Well, I did mention as chair of revenue tax, I want to sort of level out our tax volatility, our income volatility. I want to send less money to Washington. Those are, if we can accomplish that, then I'll go down with a really proud legacy. That's a
good legacy to have, and a good use of your magic wand. Okay, the last ones are just fun. A quick lightning round, kind of a this or that situation. 1-word answers. Okay, that's it, and then you're done. You're out of here. Thank you so much.
Wait. Are you a psych? Am I in a shrink session now?
No, I promise. I promise not. Just trying to end. Sometimes I can end on a downer in these things, and I'm trying to lift them up. So, all right, Tough question. Bagels or donuts?
Oh, bagels.
All right, correct. Good answer. Coffee or tea?
Neither.
You're the second one that give us that. You and Senator Arreguín had the same answer there. Early bird or night owl?
Early.
Early. Okay. Well, maybe that was the question. He chose neither. Podcast or music?
Oh, podcast.
Podcast. All right. Wind turbine or solar panel?
Ooh, I spent 20 years developing wind energy technology, and I love that it was so much fun, a great engineering effort, and a lot of achievement. Solar is going to be a bigger part of the solution than wind is, but they're both really great.
Yeah, I figured that would be a hard one for you. You didn't really answer that one, but I'll let it slide. Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for everyone else who joined us for this conversation. Thank you for your engagement with the East Bay Leadership Council's work. For you and your colleagues that were unable to join us, recording will be posted on our YouTube page. Please be sure to subscribe. If you're not a member of the East Bay Leadership Council, let's change that. I'd be happy to meet with you and share more about our vision for the region, how you can help us achieve it. all our information, eastbayleadershipcouncil.com. With that, Senator, we are adjourned. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Senator.
It's been a pleasure.